The iron shackles bit into Kerra's wrists as two guards hauled her toward the weathered wooden post in the center of Millbrook Square. And she knew with absolute certainty that she was going to die here in this miserable human settlement, where even the air smelled of hatred and fear. She had been traveling through their lands as a trader, carrying pelts and herbs from the northern territories, when a farmer's child had gone missing. The humans needed someone to blame, and an orc woman traveling alone made an easy target. They had seized her goods, bound her hands, and dragged her through the mud-slicked streets while villagers spat and cursed. Now the magistrate stood on the platform, his face red with righteous fury, declaring that 30 lashes would teach her kind to stay away from civilized folk. Kerra's heart hammered against her ribs as they pressed her chest against the post and secured her wrists above her head. The rough wood scraped against her cheek. She could hear the crowd gathering, their voices rising in anticipation of violence. This was how it ended then. Not in battle like her brothers, not in honorable combat, but tied up like an animal while humans satisfied their bloodlust. The magistrate called for the whipmaster, and Kerra closed her eyes, trying to find some dignity in her final moments. She thought of her mother in the highlands, who would never know what became of her daughter. She thought of the trade routes she would never walk again, the mountain passes where eagles soared and the air tasted clean. I will take her punishment. The voice cut through the murmur of the crowd like an axe through kindling. Deep, rough-edged, with the accent of the far mountains. Kerra's eyes snapped open, her head turning as far as the restraints allowed. A man was pushing through the crowd. He stood a full head taller than most of the villagers, with shoulders broad as an ox yoke and arms thick with corded muscle. His brown hair fell past his shoulders, shot through with premature silver at the temples, and a dark beard covered the lower half of his weathered face. He wore the simple clothes of a frontiersman, leather vest over a homespun shirt, worn trousers, and heavy boots. A hunting knife hung at his belt, and his hands were calloused and scarred from hard living. The magistrate sputtered. "Colter Ashton, what in the name of you cannot be serious?" "I am serious as death, Magistrate Walsh." The mountain man's voice carried across the square. "This woman has done nothing wrong. The Peterson boy was found an hour ago, safe in his grandfather's barn where he had fallen asleep. You are punishing an innocent." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The magistrate's face turned an even deeper shade of crimson. "That may be, but she is still an orc, still a savage who dared to walk through our lands without permission. The law is clear. The law is also clear that a man may claim substitute punishment if he believes an injustice is being done." Colter moved to stand directly before the platform, his gray eyes hard as flint. "I invoke that right. Release her and bind me instead." Kerra's mind reeled. This made no sense. Why would a human man, clearly respected enough that the magistrate knew him by name, offer to take a whipping meant for an orc stranger? It had to be a trick, some cruel game humans played before they killed you anyway. The magistrate looked like he had bitten into rotten fruit. "You would shame yourself, shame your family name for this creature. My family name died with my family 10 years ago." Colter's voice went flat and cold. "I have nothing left to shame. Now either honor the law you claim to uphold, or admit you care more about mob violence than justice." A tense silence fell over the square. Kerra could see the calculation in the magistrate's eyes, weighing his options. The crowd had gone quiet, watching. Finally, Walsh made a disgusted gesture. "Fine. Release the orc. Bind Ashton to the post." The guards looked uncertain, but they moved to obey. As they unlocked the shackles from Kerra's wrists, she stumbled forward, her legs weak. She turned to stare at the mountain man as he walked past her toward the post. "Why?" she managed to rasp. Her throat was dry, her voice hoarse from fear and thirst. Colter met her eyes for just a moment. His gaze was steady, unflinching. "Because it is right." Then they were pushing him against the post where she had just stood, securing his wrists with the same iron cuffs that still bore the warmth of her skin. He did not resist, did not flinch. The guards pulled his vest and shirt off, baring his broad back to the cold autumn air. Kerra saw the scars there, dozens of them, crisscrossing the tanned skin in pale lines. This was not the first time this man had known violence. The whipmaster approached, a thick leather lash coiled in his hands, and Kerra felt her stomach clench. She should leave. She should run while she had the chance, disappear into the wilderness before these humans changed their minds. But her feet would not move. Her eyes were locked on the mountain man's back, on the set of his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the chains that bound him. The first strike cracked across the square like thunder. Colter's body tensed, muscles flexing beneath the skin, but he made no sound. The whipmaster was not holding back. The lash left an angry red welt across those already scarred shoulders. The second blow landed, then the third. Blood began to well up in thin lines where the leather cut the skin. Kerra's tusks ground together. Her hands clenched into fists, so tight her nails bit into her palms. The crowd watched with a kind of horrified fascination, their earlier bloodlust transformed into uncomfortable silence. This was different from whipping an orc. This was one of their own, a man they knew, taking punishment for the sake of a stranger. By the 10th lash, Colter's back was striped with blood. By the 20th, his knuckles were white on the chains, and Kerra could see his jaw locked tight with the effort of keeping silent. She had never felt so helpless, so filled with rage and confusion and something else she could not name. When the 30th blow finally fell, the mountain man sagged forward against the post, breathing hard. The whipmaster stepped back, his own face pale. The magistrate stood frozen on his platform, looking like he wished he were anywhere else. Kerra moved before she could think about it. She pushed past the guards and went to the post, reaching up to the shackles. "Release him," she demanded, her voice raw with emotion she did not know how to contain. When the guards hesitated, she bared her teeth. "Release him now." Perhaps it was the tone of command, or perhaps they were as shaken as everyone else by what they had witnessed. The guards unlocked the cuffs and Colter nearly fell. Kerra caught him, taking his weight against her shoulder. He was heavy, solid muscle and bone, but she was strong. Orc women were always strong. "Where?" she asked him urgently. "Where do you live?" He managed to lift his head, his gray eyes unfocused with pain. "North, 2 miles, cabin by the split pine." "I know it," muttered one of the guards, a younger man who looked sick. "Let me help." "No," Kerra's voice was iron. "You have done enough, all of you have done enough." She began walking, half carrying the mountain man through the crowd. People parted before her like water around a stone. No one tried to stop them. Perhaps they were too ashamed. Perhaps they simply did not know what to do. The walk north was the longest 2 miles of Kerra's life. Colter drifted in and out of full consciousness, his blood soaking into her shoulder and side. She kept moving, one foot in front of the other, following the dirt road that led away from Millbrook into the wooded hills. Her own body still trembled with leftover fear, with shock at how quickly her fortune had reversed, with fury at the injustice of it all, and underneath it all with something else. Gratitude, wonder. A fierce, protective feeling toward this man who had taken a whipping meant for her, who had invoked ancient law to save a stranger. The cabin appeared where he had said it would be, a sturdy structure of logs and stone nestled against a hillside. A massive split pine stood sentinel beside it, its 2 trunks reaching toward the sky like supplicating arms. Kerra kicked the door open and maneuvered them inside. The interior was simple but well kept. A large fireplace dominated one wall, with a table and chairs nearby. Shelves held supplies and tools. A rope bed with blankets occupied the far corner. Animal pelts covered the floor, and bundles of dried herbs hung from the rafters. It smelled of wood smoke and pine and honest labor. Kerra guided Colter to the bed and helped him lie face down on the blankets. His breathing was shallow but steady. She needed to clean and treat his wounds before infection set in, but she had no supplies, no knowledge of this place. She forced herself to think clearly, pushing past the swirling emotions. Her pack was still in Millbrook, confiscated by the guards, but this was a frontier cabin. There would be water, salt, clean cloth. She moved quickly through the space, finding what she needed. A bucket of fresh water by the door, likely drawn from a spring or stream nearby. Strips of clean linen in a chest. Salt in a crock on a shelf. She built up the fire until it burned hot and bright, bringing warmth into the cabin. Then she returned to Colter's side with a basin of salted water and cloth. "This will hurt," she said quietly, though she was not sure he was conscious enough to hear. His voice emerged muffled against the blanket. "Cannot hurt worse than the lash." So he was awake. Kerra felt a strange relief at that. She began cleaning the wounds as gently as she could, washing away the blood to reveal the full extent of the damage. The lash had cut through skin in several places, raising welts and bruises across the entire expanse of his back. It would heal, she thought, but not quickly. He would be in pain for weeks. Her hands were steady as she worked, but her mind churned. This man had saved her life. More than that, he had taken her pain upon himself. She had heard stories of such things in the old tales her grandmother told, stories of heroes and sacrifice, but she had never believed humans capable of such nobility. Humans were the enemy. Humans hated orcs, feared them, killed them. Yet here was a human who had done something she still could not fully comprehend. "Why?" she asked again, the question escaping before she could stop it. "You do not know me. I am orc. Your people hate mine. Why would you do this?" Colter was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired and rough with pain. 10 years ago, I had a wife, a daughter. We lived in a settlement further west near the border territories. Kerra's hands paused in their work. She sensed this was not a story he told often. Raiders came. Not orcs, despite what folks assumed after. Just men, human bandits looking for easy plunder. They burned half the settlement, killed anyone who resisted. My wife. My little girl. I was not there. I was checking trap lines in the high country. By the time I got back, it was over. His voice went hollow. The survivors blamed orcs anyway, said it had to be orcs, no human men would do such things. They formed a militia, rode into orc lands, killed 3 families before they were satisfied. Innocent families who had nothing to do with the raid. Kerra felt something cold and heavy settle in her chest. You knew they were innocent. I tracked the real raiders myself afterward, found their camp, their stolen goods, all humans. I told the magistrate, told anyone who would listen, but they did not care. They had their vengeance. The truth did not matter. He shifted slightly, wincing. I could not stop the injustice that happened to those orc families, but I could stop what was happening in that square today. I could not let another innocent die because people need someone to hate. Kerra resumed her careful cleaning of his wounds, blinking against the burning in her eyes. She had not cried in years, not since she had left her clan to walk the trade routes alone. But this story, this man's story, cracked something open inside her. "Your wife and daughter," she said softly. "I am sorry. So am I." They fell into silence after that. Kerra finished cleaning the wounds and applied a poultice made from the dried herbs hanging in the cabin. Comfrey and yarrow, good for healing. She bound his back with the clean linen, wrapping it carefully to hold the poultice in place without pulling too tight. By the time she finished, full night had fallen outside. The fire cast dancing shadows across the cabin walls. Colter had drifted into something between sleep and unconsciousness, his breathing deep and even. Kerra sat back on her heels and looked at him, really looked at him. His face in repose was younger than she had first thought. Perhaps 35, maybe 40 winters. The lines around his eyes and mouth spoke of sorrow worn long, not true age. His hands, calloused and scarred, were the hands of a man who had worked hard for everything he had. There was no softness in him, no easy comfort, but there was strength, and something else. Honor, integrity. Things she had not believed humans possessed. Kerra rose and moved to the fireplace, adding more wood. She should leave. He had saved her, she had tended his wounds, and now she should go before she brought more trouble to his door. The humans of Millbrook would not forgive this easily. They would talk, spread rumors, perhaps turn their anger on Colter himself for what he had done. But the night was cold and she was bone-tired, and the thought of walking back into the wilderness alone made her feel hollow. She had been alone for so long. Always moving, always watchful, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots or make connections. The life of an orc in human lands was one of constant wariness. She looked back at Colter's sleeping form. He had risked everything for her. The least she could do was stay until morning, make sure he was stable, that fever did not set in. That was only practical, only sensible. Kerra found a pile of furs in the corner and made herself a rough bed on the floor near the fire. She lay down, pulling a blanket over her shoulders, and stared at the ceiling beams. Sleep felt impossible, her mind too active, her emotions too raw. But exhaustion eventually claimed her, pulling her down into uneasy dreams of whipping posts and scarred backs and gray eyes that saw her as a person, not a monster. She woke to pale dawn light filtering through the cabin's single window and the smell of fever sweat. Kerra sat up quickly, her warrior instincts pulling her from sleep to full alertness in a heartbeat. She scrambled to Colter's bedside and pressed her hand to his forehead. Hot. Too hot. The fever had set in despite her best efforts. She cursed under her breath in the orcish tongue, then set about assessing the situation. His bandages needed changing, and she would need to get water into him, bring the fever down before it could take hold and kill him. For the next 2 days, Kerra barely left Colter's side. She changed his bandages regularly, applied fresh poultices, made him drink water and thin broth even when he was too delirious to fully wake. She bathed his face and chest with cool water when the fever spiked, wrapped him in blankets when the chills came. It was strange work, this caring for another person. Orcs valued strength and self-sufficiency. The weak were left to either find their strength or fall, but this felt different. This felt like repaying a debt, though she suspected the debt ran deeper than simple obligation. On the 3rd day, the fever finally broke. Colter opened his eyes, truly conscious for the first time since the whipping, and found Kerra sitting beside the bed with a bowl of soup. "You stayed," he said, his voice hoarse. "You were in no condition to care for yourself." She lifted the bowl. "Can you eat?" He managed to push himself up slightly, wincing at the pull on his healing back. Kerra helped him, arranging pillows behind him so he could sit partially upright. She fed him the soup slowly, spoonfuls of venison broth with wild onions and tubers. He ate mechanically at first, then with increasing appetite as his body remembered its hunger. "How long?" he asked between bites. 3 days since the whipping. You had fever for 2 of them." He absorbed this information with a slight nod. "Thank you, you could have left. You took a whipping meant for me. I could hardly abandon you to die of fever afterward." Kerra kept her voice practical, matter-of-fact, though her emotions were anything but. "Besides, I am a trader. I know something of herb craft and healing." "A trader?" Colter's gray eyes studied her face. "Where do you trade?" "Anywhere that will have me, which is fewer places each season. I carry pelts and herbs from the northern territories down to the border settlements, bring back salt and tools and cloth to trade in the Orc lands. It is a living. It is dangerous work for anyone. More so for an Orc traveling alone." Kerra felt her tusks flash in something that was not quite a smile. "I can handle myself. Usually I am wary enough to avoid trouble like Millbrook. I got careless. Millbrook got cruel." His voice hardened. "You did nothing wrong." They fell into silence. Kerra finished feeding him the soup, then helped him lie back down. He was still weak, still healing, but the worst danger had passed. She should feel relieved. She should be planning her departure, figuring out how to retrieve her confiscated goods and get back to the trade routes. Instead, she found herself asking, "What will you do? The villagers will not forget what happened." Colter closed his eyes. "I stopped caring what the villagers thought a long time ago. I live up here, keep to myself, hunt and trap. Sometimes I bring meat or pelts down to trade for supplies. We maintain an uneasy peace, nothing more. That peace is broken now. Perhaps, or perhaps they will simply pretend it never happened. People are good at that, forgetting things that make them uncomfortable." Kerra thought of the Orc families killed in retaliation for a crime they did not commit, of how the truth had not mattered to the humans seeking vengeance. Yes, people were very good at forgetting. Over the following days, a strange routine developed. Colter was recovering but still too weak to care for himself fully. Kerra tended his wounds, helped him move around the cabin, prepared meals. She told herself she was simply being practical, repaying the debt she owed. But the truth was more complicated. She found herself enjoying the small domesticity of it. Cooking at the hearth, keeping the fire going, organizing the supplies in the cabin. It was peaceful here in the high country, away from the suspicious eyes of humans and the judgmental sneers of her own kind. The cabin felt safe, sheltered by the hills and the split pine that stood guard outside, and she found herself enjoying Colter's company. He was a quiet man, not given to unnecessary words, but when he did speak, it was with thoughtfulness and dry humor. He asked her about the northern territories, about the Orc clans there, about her life as a trader. He listened to her answers with genuine interest, without the hostility or fear she was accustomed to seeing in human faces. She learned that he was a skilled hunter and trapper, that he knew these mountains like the lines on his own palms, that he could track anything that moved through the wilderness, could read weather in the shape of clouds and the behavior of birds, that he had built this cabin himself, log by log, in the years after he lost his family. "It was something to do with my hands," he explained one evening as they sat by the fire. He was able to sit up now, though moving still pained him. "Something to build instead of destroy. I was not in a good place those first years. The work probably saved my life." Kerra was mending one of his shirts, her hands surprisingly nimble with the needle despite the size of her fingers. "You were alone all that time, mostly. The solitude suited me. Or at least I convinced myself it did." He poked at the fire with a long stick, sending sparks spiraling up toward the chimney. "What about you? Is there family waiting in the north, my mother if she still lives? 2 brothers in the warrior clans. A sister married into a clan further east." Kerra's needle paused in its work. "We are not close. I left when I was 16 winters old, wanting to see more than our small territory. My mother thought I was foolish. My brothers thought I was weak, choosing trade over the warrior path. Nothing weak about surviving as you do." The quiet approval in his voice made something warm bloom in her chest. Kerra focused on her stitching, uncomfortable with the feeling. The Orc clans value strength in battle above all else. I was never going to be the strongest fighter, but I had a quick mind, a good memory for routes and prices. Trading made sense. It is a kind of strength, what you do, a different kind. They talked long into the night, the conversation flowing more easily than Kerra had thought possible. She told him about the high mountain passes where snow never fully melted, about the Orc settlements carved into cliffsides, about the annual gathering where clans came together to trade and compete and celebrate. He told her about tracking mountain lions through winter storms, about a summer when he had lived entirely on fish and wild berries, about the day he had seen a mother bear and her cubs bathing in a waterfall. When Kerra finally lay down to sleep, she felt something she had not felt in years. Content. Like she had found a place where she fit, at least for a little while. 2 weeks after the whipping, Colter was well enough to move around without assistance, though his back still bore the marks and would likely scar over the old ones. Kerra had hunted for them, bringing back rabbits and a young deer that she field dressed with practiced efficiency. She had repaired several items around the cabin that needed attention, fixed a leak in the roof, restocked the woodpile. She was making herself useful, making herself needed. She knew what she was doing, even if she did not want to examine why too closely. One morning, Colter announced that he was going to check his trap lines. Kerra immediately objected. "You are not healed enough for that kind of exertion." "I am healed enough. And the traps have been sitting untended for 2 weeks. Any catch will be long spoiled, but I need to reset them before the season turns. Then I will come with you." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his gray eyes. "You do not owe me your servitude, Kerra. You have more than repaid any debt with the care you have given. You are free to return to your life." The words hit her like a blow. Of course she was free. She had always been free to leave. But hearing him say it, hearing him essentially tell her she should go, made her realize how much she did not want to. "I know I am free." She kept her voice level. "I am choosing to help you check the trap lines, unless you do not want my company." A slight smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I would welcome your company." They set out into the autumn woods, following trails only Colter could see. He moved with the fluid grace of a man completely at home in the wilderness, barely making a sound as he navigated through underbrush and over fallen logs. Kerra matched his pace easily. Orcs were naturally quiet when they wanted to be, despite their size and strength. The trap line ran in a wide circuit through the hills, checking natural game trails and water sources. Just as Colter had predicted, most of the traps held nothing but bones and rotted meat, scavenged by other animals. They reset each one methodically, working in companionable silence. At the 7th trap, they found something unexpected. A mountain lion, full-grown and magnificent, caught by one massive paw. But it was long dead, its body cold and stiff. Something had killed it after it was trapped, tearing open its belly and feeding on the organs. Colter knelt beside the carcass, examining it carefully. His expression went grim. Another cat did this. Big one from the claw marks, probably a male defending his territory. Kerra crouched beside him, her hunter's instincts engaged. The body is fresh, only a day or 2 old. The male could still be close. We should head back. If there is a territorial male in the area, he is not going to appreciate us wandering through. They reset the trap and began making their way back toward the cabin, moving faster now, more alert. The forest had gone quiet around them, birds silent, no rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Kerra's hand moved to the hunting knife at her belt, though she knew it would be little use against an angry mountain lion. The attack came without warning. The big cat launched itself from an overhanging rock, a blur of tawny fur and killing instinct aimed directly at Colter's back. Kerra moved on pure reflex, throwing herself between them. She caught the mountain lion's weight against her shoulder and went down hard, rolling with the momentum. Claws raked across her ribs, hot lines of pain, and she roared in fury and surprise. She had grown soft in the weeks at the cabin, she realized. Complacent. In the orc warrior clans, such carelessness would have gotten her killed in a heartbeat, but her body remembered the training even if her mind had relaxed. She twisted, getting her legs under the cat's body, and kicked out with all the strength in her powerful legs. The mountain lion flew backward, slamming into a tree trunk with a bone-jarring impact. It recovered quickly, landing on its feet, lips pulled back in a snarl. Kerra scrambled to her feet, positioning herself between the predator and Colter. Blood soaked through her shirt where the claws had torn, but she ignored it. There would be time to assess damage later if they survived. The cat lunged again, all teeth and claws and primal rage. Kerra caught its throat in her hands, her orcish strength enough to hold the crushing jaws away from her face. The rear claws scrabbled at her stomach, her thighs, tearing through leather and cloth. She squeezed, cutting off the cat's air, feeling the frantic beat of its pulse beneath her hands. Then Colter was there, his hunting knife flashing. He drove the blade deep into the cat's side between the ribs, angling toward the heart. Once, twice, 3 times. The mountain lion's struggles grew weaker, then ceased entirely. Its weight went heavy in Kerra's arms, and she let it drop to the ground. For a moment they stood there panting, staring at the dead predator. Then Colter turned to her, his eyes going wide. "You are bleeding. Badly." Kerra looked down at herself. Blood covered her torso, dripping steadily from the claw wounds. Now that the immediate danger had passed, the pain hit her in waves. Her knees went weak. Colter caught her before she fell. Hold on to me." She did, leaning heavily on him as he half carried, half dragged her back toward the cabin. The journey felt endless. Blood loss made her light-headed, made the world tilt and swim. She had taken worse injuries in her youth during warrior training, but that had been years ago. And there had always been clan healers nearby, orcs who knew how to treat such wounds. They reached the cabin finally, and Colter got her inside, laying her on the bed. He stripped away her ruined shirt and examined the damage with hands that shook slightly. Deep claw marks across her ribs, more on her stomach and thighs. The blood would not stop. "I need to cauterize the worst of these," he said, his voice tight. "It is going to hurt. Do it." Kerra's voice came out weaker than she intended. "Better pain than bleeding to death." He moved quickly, heating his knife blade in the fire until it glowed red. Kerra bit down on a strip of leather as he pressed the hot metal to the first wound. The pain was extraordinary, white-hot and absolute. She tasted blood where her tusks cut into her lip, but she did not scream. Orcs did not scream. Colter worked as fast as he could, cauterizing the deepest wounds, packing others with moss and spider web to help the blood clot. His hands were steady despite the fear she could see in his face. When he finally finished, he slumped back, breathing hard. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "That cat was aimed at my back. If you had not pushed me aside, then we are even." Kerra tried to smile, but the pain made it difficult. "You took a whipping for me. I took some claws for you. We can call the debt settled. This is not about debt." His voice was fierce, intense. "You could have died. You should have let it take me. I am not worth. You are worth it." She reached out, her hand finding his. "You are worth 10 of those villagers who wanted to whip me. You are worth saving." Their eyes met and held. Something passed between them, something that had been building for weeks but neither had acknowledged. Colter's hand tightened on hers. "Rest," he said finally, his voice rough. "I will watch over you." Kerra let her eyes drift closed, too tired and hurt to argue. She was dimly aware of him pulling blankets over her, of his hand smoothing the dark hair back from her forehead. Then, darkness pulled her under into healing sleep. The fever came again that night, infection setting into the wounds despite Colter's best efforts. Kerra burned with it, thrashing in delirium, crying out in the orcish tongue. Colter stayed by her side through it all, cooling her with water, forcing medicine tea between her lips, changing bloodied bandages. He had never felt fear like this, not even when he had found his settlement burned and his family gone. Then, the worst had already happened. There had been nothing left to lose. But now, watching Kerra fight for her life, he realized with crystal clarity that he had something to lose again. Someone who mattered. He did not know when it had happened, when the orc woman he had saved from a whipping post had become essential to him. Perhaps it had been gradual, building over the weeks of her care and company. Perhaps it had been in that moment when she had thrown herself between him and the mountain lion without hesitation. Or perhaps it had been there from the beginning, from the moment he had seen her bound and helpless, and known he could not let injustice claim her. All he knew was that she had to live. She had to survive this. On the second night of the fever, Kerra's eyes opened, clear and lucid for the first time. She found Colter sitting beside the bed, his head bowed in exhaustion. "Still here," she whispered. He jerked upright, relief flooding his features. "You are awake, truly awake. How long?" "2 days. The wounds got infected, I was not sure." His voice cracked slightly. "I was not sure you would come back." Kerra tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her torso, making her gasp. Colter gently pushed her back down. "Do not move, you are still healing. The fever only broke a few hours ago." She lay still, studying his face. He looked haggard, worn thin with worry and lack of sleep. For her. He had worn himself down caring for her, just as she had done for him weeks earlier. "We are a pair of fools," she said softly. "Taking wounds for each other, nursing each other back to health. This is not how things are supposed to work between humans and orcs. Maybe it is time things worked differently." There was something in his voice, something that made her heart beat faster. She wanted to pursue it, to ask what he meant, but exhaustion was already pulling her back toward sleep. Her eyes drifted closed. "Stay," she murmured. "Do not leave." "I am not going anywhere." She felt his hand cover hers, warm and solid. "I will be here when you wake." Recovery was slow this time. The mountain lion's claws had done serious damage, and infection had made it worse. Kerra spent more than a week confined to the bed. Too weak to do more than eat the broths and stews Colter prepared and sleep. She hated the helplessness of it, hated being dependent, but there was also something comforting about having someone care for her so attentively. Colter proved to be a surprisingly good nurse, patient and gentle despite his rough mountain man exterior. He kept her wounds clean and dressed, made her drink healing teas even when she protested the bitter taste, sat with her through the long nights when pain made sleep difficult. They talked during those hours, sharing stories and pieces of themselves they had kept hidden. Kerra told him about her father, a warrior who had died in a clan feud when she was young. About her first trade journey at 16, when she had been so naive and frightened she had nearly turned back a dozen times. About the loneliness of the road, always moving, never belonging anywhere. Colter spoke of his wife, Sarah, and his daughter, Emma. How Sarah had laughed at his terrible jokes and sung while she worked. How Emma had loved to collect rocks and leaves, arranging them in elaborate patterns on the cabin floor. how he had thought he would never feel anything but grief again, but that slowly over the years the pain had dulled to a manageable ache. "I thought I was done," he admitted one night. "Done with caring about people, done with letting anyone get close. It was safer that way. Lonelier, but safer." "And now," Kerra asked quietly, he met her eyes. "Now I am not so sure that safety is worth the cost." The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Kerra's pulse quickened. She had known this was coming, had felt it building like a summer storm on the horizon. But knowing did not make it less terrifying. "Colter, I am orc. You are human. There is no future in this, in whatever this is between us." "Why not?" "Because your people hate mine. Because my people would disown me for choosing a human. Because we come from different worlds." "We are in the same world right now." He reached out, his calloused hand cupping her cheek, his thumb traced gently over the ridge of her small tusk. "We are in this cabin in these mountains, and none of those other people are here. Right now it is just us. That cannot be enough. Why not?" He repeated, "Why can it not be enough that I care about you, that you care about me? Why do we have to let old hatreds dictate our future?" Kerra felt tears burning in her eyes, a rare thing for her. "Because I am afraid. I am afraid to want this, to want you, because I do not know how it could ever work. And I am afraid of how much it would hurt to try and fail." Colter leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. "I am afraid too. But I am more afraid of letting fear keep me from living, from choosing something good when it is right in front of me." "This is madness," she whispered. "Yes," he agreed, "complete madness." Then he kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, as if he expected her to pull away. But Kerra found herself leaning into it instead, her hand coming up to rest against his chest where she could feel the strong beat of his heart. The kiss deepened, becoming more certain, more real. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kerra felt like the world had shifted on its axis. Everything was different now. Everything had changed. "I want to try," she said, the words escaping before she could second-guess them. "I want to try to make this work, whatever this is. But I need you to understand what you would be taking on. I am orc. That will never change. People will always see me as other, as savage, and anyone who chooses to be with me will face that same judgment. Let them judge." Colter's voice was fierce. "I stopped caring what small-minded people thought a long time ago. All I care about is you. You say that now, but, Kerra." He took both her hands in his gray eyes steady and sure. "I have lived 10 years alone in these mountains, because I could not face being around people who chose convenient lies over difficult truths. I built this cabin, this life, as a refuge from a world that disappointed me at every turn. And then you came into my life, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to hope, to care about someone else's well-being more than my own. I am not going to give that up because some villagers might disapprove." The tears spilled over then, tracking down Kerra's green cheeks. "I have been alone so long," she admitted. "I did not think I would ever find anyone who could see past what I am to who I am. I did not think I was allowed to want that. You are allowed." He pulled her carefully into his arms, mindful of her healing injuries. "You are allowed to want happiness, to want love, to want all the things any person wants." She buried her face against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, wood smoke and pine and something uniquely his. "I do not know how to do this. I have never. Orcs do not court the way humans do. I do not know the customs, the expectations." She felt him smile against her hair. "Then we will figure it out together, make our own customs, our own expectations. There are no rules here, Kerra, just us, choosing each other every day." It sounded so simple when he said it like that. Just a choice, made and remade day after day. Maybe it could be that simple. Maybe they could make it work through sheer stubborn determination. "I am still recovering," she pointed out, trying to inject some practicality into the emotionally charged moment. "I cannot even walk more than a few steps without getting dizzy. Then we will take it slow. No rushing, no pressure. We have time." Time. Yes, they had time. Winter was coming to the mountains, and Kerra would not be fit to travel before the snows arrived. She would be here in this cabin with this man for months. The thought should have made her anxious, but instead she felt only a deep sense of rightness. "Stay the winter," Colter said, as if reading her thoughts. "Stay, and when spring comes, we can decide what happens next. No obligations beyond that." "Just the winter," Kerra agreed, though they both knew it was more than that. This was a commitment, even if they were calling it temporary. This was the beginning of something neither could fully predict. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Kerra had experienced. As her strength gradually returned, she and Colter fell into a partnership that felt as natural as breathing. They shared the work of the cabin, cooking, cleaning, chopping wood, tending the small winter garden he had planted. They went on short hunting trips together, working in tandem to bring down deer and elk for winter meat stores. And in the quiet evenings, they learned each other. Colter taught her to read the human script, tracing letters in the dirt by the fireplace, until she could sound out words from his small collection of books. She taught him phrases in the Orcish tongue, laughing at his clumsy pronunciation until he got the guttural sounds right. They played strategy games with carved wooden pieces, competitive and focused. They told stories and shared silences and slowly built something that felt like home. The physical intimacy between them grew gradually, respectfully. A hand held while sitting by the fire. Arms around each other as they slept against the growing cold. Kisses that started soft and gentle but deepened into something more passionate as Kerra's injuries healed. Colter was always careful with her, always making sure she was comfortable, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. When they finally made love, 6 weeks after that first kiss, it was in the deep of winter with snow piled high outside and the fire burning bright. It was awkward and tender and occasionally clumsy. Two people from different worlds trying to understand each other's bodies, each other's responses. But it was also beautiful, a physical expression of the bond that had grown between them. Afterward, lying tangled together in the narrow bed, Kerra felt a contentment she had never known existed. Colter traced the scars on her ribs, the marks left by the mountain lion's claws. "We match now," he said quietly. "Both scarred, both marked by violence we endured for each other." Kerra ran her fingers over the lash marks on his back, feeling the raised ridges. "Battle scars, that is what my people would call them, marks of honor." "Is that what they are?" "They are proof that we chose each other, even when the choice was hard, even when it cost us pain. Yes, I think that is honor." As winter deepened, they saw no one else. The snow made the trails impassable, isolating them completely in their mountain refuge. It should have felt confining, but instead it felt like a gift. Time stolen from the world, where they could simply be together without judgment or interference. Colter taught Kerra to track animals through snow, to distinguish between the marks of different creatures. She taught him the orc methods of tanning hides, producing leather more supple and durable than what he had managed on his own. They worked side by side to build a small addition to the cabin, a storage room for their growing supply of preserved food and pelts. They were building a life together, Kerra realized. Not consciously, not with any grand plan, but in these small daily actions. The way they moved around each other in the cabin's close quarters without getting in each other's way. The way they could communicate with just a look or a gesture. The way they fit together in work and in rest. One evening in deep winter, as they sat wrapped in furs by the fire, Colter said, "Tell me about orc bonding customs." Kerra looked up from the basket she was weaving. Why do you want to know? Curiosity. And I want to understand your culture, your traditions. It is part of who you are. She set the basket aside, considering. Orc bonding is a public declaration before the clan. The two who wish to bond present themselves to the clan chief and the elders, state their intention. If the match is approved, which it usually is, unless there are political complications, they exchange blades. The weapons become symbols of their union, meant to be carried always as reminder of their bond. Exchange blades, Colter repeated thoughtfully. That makes sense for a warrior culture. What if the match is not approved? Then the pair can choose to defy the clan and bond anyway, but they would be cast out, forced to leave the territory, or they can accept the decision and go their separate ways. Kerra's expression turned sad. I have seen both outcomes. Neither is easy. And humans, what are our customs? I know only a little. There are ceremonies, vows spoken before witnesses, rings exchanged, I think, and something called marriage, which is supposed to be permanent. Supposed to be, Colter agreed, though it does not always work out that way. My marriage to Sarah, we were married by a traveling priest, exchanged simple copper rings, spoke vows to honor and protect each other. It was a good marriage while it lasted. The sadness in his voice was old now, worn smooth by time. Kerra reached out and took his hand. Do you wish we could have something like that? A formal bonding, recognition of what we are to each other. Colter was quiet for a long moment. I wish we lived in a world where we could walk into a village together and not face hatred, where we could build our life without hiding. But wishing does not make it so. No, Kerra agreed softly. Wishing does not make it so. But the seed had been planted. Over the following weeks, Kerra found herself thinking about bonding, about making their relationship something more formal and recognized. Not by others, she had accepted that the outside world would likely never approve, but between themselves. A private ceremony, a commitment that was real regardless of whether anyone else acknowledged it. She mentioned it to Colter one night, hesitant and uncertain how he would react. I know we cannot have the bonding ceremonies of either our peoples, she began, but what if we created our own? Something that honors both traditions, that makes this official between us, even if the world never knows. Colter's eyes lit up with understanding and something deeper. Hope, perhaps. I would want that. I would want to bond with you in whatever way we can make real. They spent days planning it, blending elements from both cultures into something unique to them. They would exchange blades as per orc custom, but they would also speak vows as per human tradition. There would be no witnesses except the mountains themselves, no approval needed from clan chiefs or priests. Just the two of them, making promises they intended to keep. On the first day of spring thaw, when the snow had melted enough to reach the base of the split pine, they held their ceremony. They bathed in the ice-cold stream, dressed in their best clothes, and walked together to stand beneath the twin trunks of the great tree. Colter had crafted a knife for Kerra over the winter months, working the metal with patient skill. The blade was balanced and keen, the handle wrapped in leather, and carved with orcish symbols of strength and loyalty that she had taught him. Kerra had forged a larger hunting knife for him, using techniques from her clan's traditional smiths, with a handle made from elk antler and steel that would hold its edge through hard use. They stood facing each other beneath the tree, the spring sunlight filtering through the newly budding branches. Kerra's heart hammered in her chest, nerves and joy mixed together. Colter spoke first, his voice steady. I never thought I would find this again. Someone to share my life with, someone who makes me want to face each new day. You saved my life that day in Millbrook, not just by tending my wounds, but by reminding me that there are still good things worth fighting for in this world. I vow to stand by your side, to honor you, to protect you, to build a life with you for as long as we both shall live." He held out the knife he had made for her. Kerra took it, her hands trembling slightly, feeling the perfect balance of the weapon. It was beautiful, a work of love. Then it was her turn. She had never been good with words, had never learned the flowery speeches that humans seem to favor, but she spoke from the heart, in the direct way of her people. "I have walked alone for many years. I thought that was my fate, to always be outside, never belonging anywhere. But you took a whipping meant for me, and in that act, you gave me something I had stopped believing in. Hope. A place to call home. A person who sees me, truly sees me, and chooses me anyway. I vow to stand with you, to share your burdens, to make my strength yours for all my days." She offered him the knife she had forged. His hands closed around it, and she saw the shine of tears in his gray eyes. "I accept your vow," he said, the traditional orc response she had taught him. "I accept your vow," she echoed. Then they kissed, sealing their bond beneath the split pine with no witnesses but the awakening forest. When they pulled apart, both were smiling, a joy that felt almost painful in its intensity. "So that is it?" Colter asked. "We are bonded, married." "In the ways that matter, yes. In our hearts, in our commitment to each other. The lack of official recognition does not make it less real." "No," he agreed. "It does not." They walked back to the cabin hand in hand, their new blades hanging at their belts. Inside, Kerra had prepared a feast from their winter stores: roasted venison, root vegetables, fresh bread made from the last of their flour, and even a berry tart sweetened with honey. They ate and talked and laughed, celebrating their union in the privacy of their mountain home. That night, lying together in their bed, Colter said, "We should think about the future. What happens when spring fully arrives, when the trade routes open again?" Kerra had been avoiding this conversation, but she knew it needed to happen. "I was supposed to return to the Northern Territories, deliver goods to my usual contacts. But after all this time, they probably think I am dead. My route is certainly lost to me now. You could stay here. We could build a life in these mountains." "I know it would be isolated, but I want to stay," Kerra interrupted. "I want to make this cabin, this place, my home, with you. But we will need supplies we cannot produce ourselves. Salt, flour, tools we will have to trade in the villages sometimes. That could be dangerous. After what happened in Millbrook, then we will go to different villages, ones further away, or I can go alone to orc trading posts while you handle the human settlements." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. "We will figure it out, Colter. We have faced worse than logistics." He smiled, pulling her down for a kiss. "Yes, we have." Spring arrived in full, turning the mountains green and filling the air with birdsong. Kerra and Colter fell into the rhythm of the changing season, planting a larger garden, hunting the spring game, repairing winter damage to the cabin. They worked together seamlessly now, a true partnership in all things. But the outside world could not be held at bay forever. It was in late spring when they had their first visitors. Colter and Kerra were working in the garden when they heard horses approaching on the trail. They exchanged glances, both immediately alert. Colter stood, positioning himself slightly in front of Kerra, though she moved to stand beside him. Whatever came, they would face it together. 3 riders emerged from the tree line. One was the young guard from Millbrook, the one who had looked sick during the whipping. The other 2 were older men, carrying themselves with the bearing of people who expected to be obeyed. They reined in their horses at the edge of the cleared space around the cabin, staring at Colter and Kerra. The young guard spoke first. "Mr. Ashton, I am glad we found you well." "Thomas." Colter nodded at the young man. "What brings you up the mountain?" One of the older men cleared his throat. "We are here representing the town council of Millbrook. There are matters that need addressing regarding the incident last autumn. Kerra felt her muscles tense, ready for violence, but Colter's voice remained calm. What matters would those be? The older man shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. The town owes you an apology, Ashton. The magistrate was acting on bad information and prejudice. What happened to you, what nearly happened to this orc woman, it was wrong. The council has voted to formally apologize and offer reparations. Kerra could hardly believe what she was hearing. Humans apologizing to an orc. It was unprecedented in her experience. Colter seemed equally surprised, but he hid it better. I appreciate the apology, though reparations are not necessary. I made my choice freely. Nevertheless, the man continued, we would like to return the goods that were confiscated from. He hesitated, then looked directly at Kerra. From you, miss, your trading pack and its contents, as well as offer payment for the time and goods lost. The young guard, Thomas, spoke up again. I am sorry I did not stand up for you when it happened. It has weighed on me all winter. There was such earnest regret in his young face that Kerra found her anger softening. You are young. Standing against the crowd takes a courage most never find. That you found it now is something. The third man, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. The magistrate has been removed from his position, and there are new laws being discussed about treatment of traveling traders regardless of race. It is small progress, but it is something. Colter glanced at Kerra, a question in his eyes. She gave a small nod. He turned back to the men. We accept the apology and the return of the trading goods. You can leave them here, but I want to be clear, the orc woman has a name, Kerra. If Millbrook truly wishes to make amends, start by seeing her as a person, not a creature. The older man had the grace to look ashamed. You are right. Miss Kerra, please accept our apologies for the grievous wrong done to you. I accept, Kerra said, keeping her voice neutral. She was not sure she believed this change of heart was permanent, but she could acknowledge the attempt. The men dismounted and unloaded several packs from their horses, Kerra's confiscated goods and additional supplies as reparation. They did not linger, clearly uncomfortable, but they were polite as they took their leave. Thomas was the last to mount up, and he paused to look at Colter and Kerra standing together. For what it is worth, he said quietly, I think what you two have is something rare, something good. I hope the world lets you keep it. Then they were gone, riding back down the mountain trail toward Millbrook. Kerra and Colter stood in silence for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Finally, Kerra shook her head in disbelief. Did that really just happen? Did humans just apologize to me? I think they did. Colter started to laugh, and after a moment, Kerra joined him. It was absurd, impossible, wonderful. They sorted through the returned goods that evening. Everything Kerra had been carrying was there, along with additional supplies: salt, flour, sugar, tools, bolts of cloth. It was more than generous reparation. We could use these to start real trading again, Kerra mused, running her hand over the quality of the cloth. Between the orc territories and the human settlements, we know both worlds. We could serve as intermediaries. Colter considered this. It would be dangerous. Not everyone is as apologetic as the Millbrook Council. Everything worth doing is dangerous. She looked up at him, her green eyes bright. But imagine if we could help build bridges between our peoples. Show them that coexistence is possible, even friendship, even love. You are dreaming of changing the world now, maybe, she smiled, her small tusk showing. We have already done the impossible, a human and an orc bonded, building a life together. Why not dream bigger? Colter pulled her into his arms, resting his chin on top of her head. Why not indeed? Though we should probably start small. Maybe just trade routes and fair dealing before we try to end generations of hatred. Small steps, Kerra agreed, but steps forward nevertheless. Over the summer, they began implementing their plan. Colter made trips to human settlements further from Millbrook, places where he was not known, to trade pelts and herbs. He cultivated contacts, built relationships, spread word that there was a reliable trading post in the mountains that dealt fairly with all comers. Kerra made journeys north into orc territories, reconnecting with old contacts, carefully explaining that she had found a situation that worked for her. Most were skeptical, some were openly hostile, but a few were willing to trade with her despite her choice to live with a human. She made no secret of her bonding to Colter, figuring that honesty was better than trying to hide what would inevitably come out anyway. It was hard work, and progress was slow. But gradually, they built a reputation. The mountain trading post, run by the unlikely pair, the human who had taken a whipping for an orc, and the orc who had saved his life in return. People were curious, and curiosity brought them to trade, and fair dealing brought them back. By the time autumn rolled around again, a full year after Kerra had been tied to the whipping post in Millbrook, they had a functioning trading operation. Orcs brought furs and herbs and mountain crafts. Humans brought tools and cloth and preserved foods. Colter and Kerra served as the middlemen, taking a small percentage but mostly just facilitating the exchange. More than that, they were proving something. That orcs and humans could work together. That the old hatreds did not have to define the future. One crisp autumn evening, as they sat by the fire after a particularly successful trading day, Kerra felt a contentment so profound it was almost painful. She looked at Colter, at his weathered face in the firelight, at the way he smiled at something he was reading in one of his books, and she felt overwhelmed with love for this man who had changed her entire world. "What are you thinking?" he asked, noticing her stare. "That I am happy. Truly, deeply happy. I did not think I was allowed to be this happy." Colter set his book aside and pulled her close. "You are allowed. We both are. We have earned it." "Have we? Sometimes I worry that this is all too good, that something will come along to destroy it." "Something might," he admitted. "The world is unpredictable and people are complicated, but worrying about future pain does not protect us from it. It just robs us of present joy." Kerra leaned into him, drawing strength from his solidity. "When did you become so wise?" "I have had a good teacher." He kissed the top of her head. "You have taught me to hope again, to live again. That is wisdom worth having." As winter approached once more, they prepared for the lean months with the confidence of people who had done this before. Their stores were fuller than last year, their cabin more comfortable, their partnership more solid. They knew each other's rhythms now, knew how to work together and give each other space in equal measure. On the anniversary of their bonding ceremony, they returned to the split pine. The tree stood as it always had, twin trunks reaching skyward, unchanging while the world changed around it. They did not speak new vows, the ones they had made still held, but they renewed their commitment to each other in the silence of shared understanding. "Another year," Colter said quietly. "The first of many, I hope." "The first of many," Kerra agreed. That winter was easier than the last, though no less isolated. They had worked to keep them busy crafting items to trade in spring, tanning hides, making repairs and improvements to the cabin. And they had each other, which made even the coldest days warm. It was during a heavy snowstorm in deep winter that Kerra realized something that made her heart race. Her monthly courses, which had been regular as clockwork her entire adult life, had not come. She was late, very late. She said nothing at first, not wanting to worry Colter or get his hopes up if she was wrong. But as the weeks passed and her body began showing other signs, tender breasts, unusual fatigue, a sensitivity to certain smells, she could no longer deny what was happening. She was carrying a child. His child. Their child. The realization terrified her. Orc human children were rare, the stuff of whispered rumors and old stories. She had no idea what to expect, whether the pregnancy would be safe, whether the child would be healthy. And beyond the physical concerns were the practical ones. What kind of life could they offer a child born of two worlds, belonging fully to neither? But beneath the terror was a fierce joy. A child. Their child. A living symbol of the bond they had chosen, the love they had built. She told Colter one evening as they prepared for bed. He had noticed she had been unusually quiet for days, and when he asked what was troubling her, the words spilled out. "I am pregnant. I am going to have a baby, our baby." He went very still, his eyes widening. "You are certain as I can be without a healer to confirm it." "All the signs are there." For a long moment he just stared at her. Then he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "A baby," he whispered. "We are going to have a baby. Are you happy about it?" Kerra asked, suddenly uncertain. "I know we never discussed this possibility, never planned for it. Happy." He pulled back to look at her face, his own streaked with tears. "Kerra, I never thought I would have this again. A family, a child, after Emma. I thought that part of my life was over. But now you are telling me we are going to have a baby, and I am so happy I can barely breathe." Kerra felt her own tears spilling over. "I am scared. I do not know anything about raising children, especially not a child who will be half human, half orc. What if something goes wrong? What if the world is too cruel to them? Then we will teach them to be strong, to be kind, to stand up for what is right even when it is hard." Colter cupped her face in his hands. "We will figure it out together, the same way we have figured out everything else. And our child will grow up knowing they are loved, that they come from two people who chose each other against all odds. That is no small thing." "No," Kerra agreed, feeling the fear recede slightly in the face of his certainty. "That is no small thing." The pregnancy progressed through the winter and into spring. Kerra's body changed, her belly swelling with their growing child. Colter was endlessly attentive, almost comically so, fussing over her and insisting she rest more, work less. She tolerated it because she knew it came from love, even when his overprotectiveness drove her to frustrated growls. They made plans. The cabin would need to be expanded, a separate sleeping space created for the child. They would need cloth for swaddling, wood for a cradle, supplies for the birth itself. Colter wanted to bring in a healer, but Kerra refused. "I do not trust human healers to know how to handle an orc birth, and I do not trust orc healers not to report back to my clan about my situation. We will do this ourselves." "You cannot deliver your own baby," Colter protested. "No, but you can help me. I will tell you what to do when the time comes. Orc women are strong. We are built for this." He looked unconvinced but did not argue further. Instead, he sought out every book, every piece of knowledge he could find about childbirth, studying it with the intensity of a scholar. Kerra found it endearing and irritating in equal measure. As spring turned to summer and Kerra's belly grew round and heavy, they received an unexpected visitor. A female orc, older, with iron-gray hair and the bearing of a clan elder. She approached the cabin openly, making no attempt at stealth. Kerra met her outside, one hand instinctively resting on her swollen belly. Colter emerged from the cabin, his hand near his knife but not touching it. The older orc studied them both with shrewd, dark eyes. "I am Gracia of the Northern Highlands clan. You are Kerra, daughter of Thura." "I am." Kerra lifted her chin, refusing to show the apprehension she felt. "Why have you come?" "Word has spread in the orc territories of the traitor who bonded with a human. Some say you are a traitor. Others say you are mad. Your mother sent me to see the truth for myself and bring word back of whether you still live. As you can see, I live. And I am bonded to this man, Colter Ashton. We have built a life here. Grash's eyes moved to Kerra's pregnant belly, and you carry his child, a half-blood. The term was not spoken with particular venom, but it was not kind either. Kerra felt Colter tense beside her. I carry our child, she corrected firmly. And they will be raised in love with the strength of both their heritages. The older orc was silent for a long moment, studying them both. Finally, she nodded slowly. I will tell your mother that you live, that you are well, that you have made your choice freely. Whether she accepts this or not, I cannot say, but I will carry the truth to her. Thank you. Kerra felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Grasha turned to go, then paused. For what it is worth, young Kerra, I have seen many things in my long life. I have seen much hatred between our peoples, much blood spilled over old grudges. But I have also seen that sometimes the bravest thing is to choose differently than those who came before. Your child will face hardships that cannot be denied. But they will also know that love is stronger than hate if you teach them well. Then she was gone, disappearing back into the forest as silently as she had come. Kerra and Colter stood together in silence, processing the visit. Your mother knows now, Colter said quietly. How does that make you feel? Strange. Relieved, I think. I had accepted that I might never see any of my birth family again, but knowing that my mother at least knows I am alive and made my own choice. It matters. Will she try to contact you? I do not know. Clan politics are complicated. She may not be able to, even if she wanted to. Kerra placed her hand over Colter's where it rested on her belly. But it does not matter. We are our own family now. The baby came in late summer, on a sweltering day when the heat made even breathing feel like work. Kerra's labor started in the morning and stretched on through the afternoon and into the evening. Colter stayed by her side throughout, following her instructions, bringing her water, letting her grip his hands when the contractions came hard. It was nothing like the birth of his first daughter, when he had been sent outside to pace and worry while the women tended Sarah. This time, he was present for every moment, watching Kerra's strength and determination as she fought to bring their child into the world. When the baby finally emerged as the sun was setting, Colter caught the slippery little body in his hands and felt his heart break open with love. A daughter. They had a daughter. She was tiny, perfect, with green-tinted skin lighter than Kerra's, small nubs where tusks would eventually grow, and pointed ears. Her eyes, when they blinked open, were gray like his. She let out a lusty cry that filled the cabin, announcing her arrival to the world. Colter placed the baby on Kerra's chest, watching as his bonded partner, his wife, in all the ways that mattered, touched their daughter with trembling hands. She is beautiful, Kerra whispered, tears streaming down her face. Perfect. Just like her mother, Colter managed, his own voice thick with emotion. They named her Alina, a name that worked in both human and orcish tongues. Alina Ashton, daughter of two worlds, born of love that had defied every expectation and overcome every obstacle. The weeks after Alina's birth were a blur of sleepless nights and constant care. The baby was healthy and strong, with a powerful set of lungs and her mother's stubborn temperament. Kerra recovered well, her orc constitution serving her well, and between the two of them they managed the demands of a newborn. When autumn came again, they made the trip down to Millbrook with Alina swaddled against Kerra's chest. It was a statement, a declaration. This was their family, and they were not hiding it. The villagers' reactions were mixed. Some stared with open hostility. Others seemed genuinely curious about the baby, asking questions about whether she was healthy, whether the mixed heritage caused any problems. A few, including young Thomas, who was now serving on the town council, offered genuine congratulations. Magistrate Walsh's replacement, a younger woman named Petra, approached them in the town square. She looked at Kerra, at Colter, at the baby with her mixed features, and her expression was thoughtful. "You are braver than most would be, raising a child so openly in these prejudiced times." "We refuse to hide what we are, what our family is," Kerra said firmly. Petra nodded. "Good. The world will not change if people like you are not willing to stand visible in it. I hope you know that not everyone here wishes you ill. Some of us are trying to build a better future." It was not acceptance, not fully, but it was progress, however small. And small progress was better than none at all. As they traveled the trade routes that autumn, introducing their daughter to both human and orc traders, they faced judgment and prejudice. Yes. But they also found pockets of acceptance, people who looked at their little family and saw hope rather than aberration. By the time Alina was 6 months old, crawling around the cabin and investigating everything with determined curiosity, Colter and Kerra had built something remarkable. A trading network that spanned both cultures. A reputation for fairness and honesty that transcended species divides. A family that proved love was stronger than hatred. One evening, with Alina sleeping peacefully in her cradle and the fire burning low, Kerra and Colter sat together as they had done countless times before. "You ever regret it?" Colter asked quietly. "The life you could have had if you had never come through Millbrook that day?" Kerra thought about it seriously, giving the question the weight it deserved. "No. That life was one of loneliness and constant movement, never belonging anywhere. This life has challenges, yes, but it also has you. It has Alina. It has purpose and meaning and love. I would not trade that for anything. Even though the world makes it hard, especially because the world makes it hard, we are proving something important, that the old divisions do not have to last forever, that people can choose differently." She leaned against him, feeling his arm come around her shoulders. "What about you? Do you regret taking that whipping for me?" Colter laughed softly. "That whipping was the best decision I ever made. It brought you into my life. It gave me a reason to hope again. It gave me you and Alina, and a future I never thought I would have. No, I do not regret a single lash." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep, listening to the night sounds of the forest around their cabin. Outside, the mountains stood eternal and unchanging. Inside, everything had changed and would keep changing as Alina grew and their life together continued to unfold. "She will ask questions eventually," Kerra mused, "about why she looks different from other children, why some people stare or say unkind things. Then we will answer honestly. Tell her about the day we met, about the choices we made, about the love that brought her into being. We will teach her to be proud of both her heritages, to see her mixed blood as strength rather than weakness. And if the world is cruel to her, then we will teach her to be strong enough to handle it, kind enough not to become cruel herself, and brave enough to keep choosing love even when it is hard." Colter pressed a kiss to Kerra's temple, the same way her parents did. Kerra felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry more easily since Alina's birth, her emotions closer to the surface. "I love you, Colter Ashton. I am grateful every day that you were brave enough to take my punishment, foolish enough to nurse a stranger back to health, and wise enough to see past what I am to who I am. I love you too, Kerra. My wife, my partner, my heart. Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing this life with me. Thank you for Alina." They kissed long and deep, a reaffirmation of everything they had built together. When they pulled apart, Alina stirred in her cradle, making the soft noises that meant she would wake soon and demand feeding. Kerra rose to tend to her daughter, lifting the baby into her arms and settling by the fire to nurse. Colter came to sit beside them, his arm around Kerra's shoulders, one finger caught in Alina's tiny grip. They made a picture there in the firelight, this impossible family, this defiant statement of love over hatred. The years would bring more challenges, they knew. Alina would grow and face prejudice, would struggle with her dual identity, would have to forge her own path in a world not designed for people like her. There would be setbacks and heartaches, moments when the old divisions threatened to tear apart everything they had built. But there would also be victories, more families like theirs, inspired by their example. Gradual shifts in attitudes as people saw that orcs and humans could not only coexist but thrive together. A future where children like Alina would not be such rare anomalies, where mixed families would be accepted rather than exceptional. Colter and Kerra would face it all together, the way they had faced everything since that day in the Millbrook Square, when a mountain man had stepped forward to take a whipping meant for an orc woman. That moment had changed both their lives irrevocably, had set them on a path neither could have predicted. It had been the beginning of something beautiful, something that proved that love, real love, was stronger than generations of hatred. That individual courage could chip away at systemic prejudice. That choosing each other every day was enough to build a life worth living. As Alina nursed contentedly and the fire burned low and the mountains stood watch over their small cabin, Kerra felt a peace so profound it almost frightened her. This was happiness. This was home. This was the future she had never dared to dream of, made real through sacrifice and stubbornness, and a love that refused to accept the world's limitations. "We did it," she whispered to Colter. "Against all odds, we actually did it." "We did," he agreed, his voice full of wonder. "And we will keep doing it, every day for the rest of our lives." The split pine stood outside, its twin trunks reaching toward the stars, a silent witness to the vows they had spoken and the life they had built. It would stand there long after they were gone, a marker of this place where two people from different worlds had chosen to create something new. But for now, in this moment, Colter and Kerra were simply a family sitting together in the firelight, their daughter in their arms, their future stretched out before them like the mountain trails they knew so well. Unknown, certainly. Challenging, undoubtedly. But theirs to walk together, step by step, choice by choice, love by love. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.